Suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Na nagirkan kami benar sa sundalo. Amadak benar limuda po sa kami. Taman sa namatay pandiyan sa mga tao. Mga bapa namin pinamatay nila. Nantubay kina siya namin sa dato piyang, nantubay sa bapin. Na di kay pagkuana sa basuka sa magabi sa mga magmam, mabagulan ni kadakli na pambasuka sa ganta.
Civilians caught in the crossfire of conflict on the island of Mindanao in southern Philippines. In August 2008, more than 500,000 people fled their villages after fighting erupted between the armed forces of the Philippines and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. Makeshift evacuation camps were hastily set up to provide food and shelter for the refugees. Today, long after the fighting has ceased, many families have returned to their villages. But thousands still remain in the camps out of fear and despair, waiting, hoping that peace will come. When fighting flared in 2000...
ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut. I'm your host, Buddy Kunana. Now, on this show, we talk about everything under the sun. And tonight's topic is very controversial, one that's embroiling the nation. I'm talking about the peace problem in Mindanao and the Bangsamoro Basic Law, which many are now criticizing and questioning, given the tragic events over a month ago where 44 of our Special Action Force policemen were killed in a massacre by combined elements of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front and the Bangsa Moro Islamic Freedom Fighters. And joining us to talk about this topic, exactly what is the BBL and how does it impact the Philippines, are two very special guests. One is on my right, we have Mr. Rod KAPUNAN, who is a political columnist of the Manila Standard. And joining him is Mr. FERDIE PASION, a nationalist and the chairman of NAT-FIL. So good evening, gentlemen, and welcome to Philippines Uncut. Pleasure to have you both here. Good evening, Rod. Good evening, FERDIE. And you guys have been on the show before with different topics, but I'm so glad that you gentlemen are here now because this is really a very important topic. And the objective of this show tonight is to try to educate the viewers about what really is the BBL, the Bangsamoro Basic Law, what is its history, and what are the possible consequences, and why is it that there are so many forces that seem to be hell-bent on passing this, in spite of the fact that so many tragic things have happened. So before we jump into it, let's have some background information about you gentlemen first. Let's start with Mr. KAPUNAN. Rod, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, first time I've been a columnist with for Manila Daily Tribune and then Manila Standard. I wrote 2 books. One about labor, became became sikat abroad. Another is Saving the Republic. It's about martial law. That's all I can tell you. I've been writing for quite some time.
Yes, and you've been following these events in Mindanao,
yes,
for such a very long time already. So,
yes.
Yeah, so we're really primed to talk about this tonight. How about you, FERDIE? Tell us a bit about your background. What is NAT-FIL?
Well, the NAT-FIL is the Nationalist Filipinos Against Foreign Intervention. We formed this group during the negotiations, when there were negotiations that led to the adoption of the framework agreement on the Bangsamoro, because we were opposing this on the basis that this would work against the interests of the Republic of the Philippines. So we were forced, a group of patriots came together, and we were forced by circumstance to put up this Nationalist Filipinos Against Foreign Intervention organization, or NAT-FIL.
Yes, and very timely that your organization now is here and is leading the forefront against what you say, what you allege is foreign intervention in Philippine matters regarding this Bangsamoro basic law. Okay, let's talk about first the background of this problem, because a lot of people, who are observing the situation probably don't have a clear grasp of exactly why is it that this BBL thing has come about. Okay, so maybe we can start the discussion talking about the background of the Muslim secessionist problem in Mindanao. Perhaps, Rod, you can start.
Well, actually, this started way back in 1968. In 1968, there was that what we call Jabida massacre. It was played up in the media because most of the people, the recruits, I should say, the recruits were Tausug. They were recruited to form the so-called Operation Merdeka. Operation Merdeka was designed was to serve as an advanced force to liberate Sabah. And so, but somehow during the training, nagkaroon ng mutiny. There was a mutiny. Unfortunately, many of them were killed. Because, pagka highly confidential yung mission, siyempre, wala kang magagawa kundi mauwi sa ganon. So, ang nangyari, yung Muslim na yun, Tausug, nagising sila. It became emotional. So, they were financed they were urged by Malaysia to form the Moro National Liberation Front.
Okay.
Moro National Liberation Front became the front force to secede Mindanao. So instead of us getting back Sabah, nagkaroon ng tinatawag na napunta sa atin.
Yung problema.
Oo.
Yes.
Now, let me tell you this. Later, na-realize ng mga Tausug, I don't want to call them MILF, but Tausug, they realize na, sandali, i-liberate namin yung Sabah. Amin yun eh. Andun ang homeland namin. Ancestral land nila talaga yan. Pero mahihiwalay sa amin ng permanente yun. So, nang mawala, naging emotional sila, nawala unti-unti yun. Nag-iba ng shift ng hangin.
Yes.
So, nag-shift naman ang Malaysia ng loyalty. In-exploit naman niya yung Maguindanao at saka Maranao, yung dalawang grupo na yan. So, nung in-exploit yan, yun ang nag-form ang MILF. Ngayon, there was an agreement. First, the Tripoli Agreement, that was in 1976.
76, yes.
And then it was followed by the Jakarta Agreement sometime in 1996, Ramos administration. Nothing happened to that. Of course, they were given funds.
For the arm, the ARMM.
To the 5 million yun. 5 billion yata yung binigay ni Presidente Ramos noon. Nawala nangyari.
To the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao.
Yes, to the autonomous region. Nawala yun, natunaw yung pera na yun. And so, they want to create this. Now, ito ang palaging problema ngayon, under the proposed agreement, Bangsamoro, BBL, Bangsamoro Basic Law, ang authority dyan, ang main authority dyan, ay ang MILF, Bangsamoro.
Sila lang kausap eh.
Sila lang
Oh,
kausap.
yes.
So in effect, lahat ng mga Muslims under sa kanila, whatever groups, kung ano-ano man tribo,
Tausug, whatever, all under the MILF.
Ngayon,
Okay.
ang problema, hindi pinag-usapan yung Sabah. Hindi pinag-usapan yung Sabah.
Nowhere is it mentioned
Yes,
in the
hindi
BBL.
pinag-usapan. So, pag na-ratify ang Bangsamoro Bangsamoro Basic Law, eventually, many suspect, idadrop yung Sabah, and the Tausugs are against it. Yan ang main reason kung bakit ang MLF ay ayaw na mag-support niyan. Nag-U-turn yan, natatanda mo, 1976, gusto nila mag-secede ngayon, hindi na sila pwede. Kasi nagising sila sa katotohanan.
Yes, na mawawala yung Sabah sa kanila.
Mawawala sa kanila.
Yes.
Yung, parang sa pagnanais nila na makuha ang Pilipinas, ang makuha ang Mindanao, yung bahay mismo nila mawawala ang
Yes,
Sabah.
homeland nila.
Homeland
Yes.
nila. Yun ang nangyari.
Yes.
So, kaya nire-reject yan. Yun ang history
Yung
yan.
history.
I
Ferdy?
would like to mention here that I have many Tausug friends, and we really studied this matter, no? In-depth talaga yung pag-aaral namin dito, pati yung mga original historical documents. There was no such thing as a Jabida massacre. And you can ask the Tausugs. They will say that there was no such thing as Jabida massacre. This was hyped by Malaysia through sadly, through a Philippine senator by the name of Benigno Aquino Jr., the late
The father of
Ninoy Aquino.
our current president.
But as Ambassador Tinglaw would like to put it, even in the privileged speech of Ninoy, in his expose of the so-called Jabida massacre, said that he believes that there was no such massacre. Because there were no families that were claiming that there was a member of their family that's missing. And when President Marcos conducted right there in Corregidor,
Yes,
a counting of the so-called recruits, only 8 were missing.
Yes.
And the President ordered the search for these 8. And when the armed forces and the police searched for the missing 8 trainees, their families, instead of complaining that they are missing, said that they do not know where. So they were hiding these 8. In the book of Arturo Tolentino, he is of the opinion that these 8 are actually deserters. And the reason why the families are hiding these 8 is because at that time, the punishment for desertion is death by firing squad.
Yes.
And it's inconceivable for a human being to swim from Corregidor all the way to Cavite. Everybody knows this. Even ships finds it hard to pass through that because there's a strong current there. So first of all, that's the first myth that we have to debunk, because this is a Malaysian instigated myth that is supposed to divide the Filipino people, the Muslims from the Christians, because before that, we were united in trying to regain Sabah. So this BBL naman started when the Malaysians somehow were able to convince the Arroyo administration, together with the Americans, particularly the United States Institute of Peace, to come out with the Memorandum of Agreement on the Ancestral Domain. Remember that the U.S. Ambassador Kirstie Kenny, was there in Kuala Lumpur for the signing of the MOA AD. But fortunately, the Supreme Court issued a temporary restraining order and later on declared the MOA AD as unconstitutional. The question is, if the MOA AD is unconstitutional, why is it that the BBL, which is just almost an exact copy of
a resurrection of the MOA AD,
being pushed now by the President? So,
and it's so strange, no, Rod and Ferdy. Like, people are saying, we already have the arm. Ba't pa natin kailangan mag-BBL? Meron na tayong arm eh. Anong masasagot nyo doon?
Well, actually, I'm also of the same. I also wonder, kasi ang arm, nandyan na yan eh. Kagaya na sinabi natin, it is provided.
It's been working, and it's been working for the past 15 years
it
or
is provided
more than 20 years.
It is provided for under the Constitution.
Yes.
The problem is that this government is silent about the issue of ratification. It is silent. All they have been talking about the approval by Congress, but so what? It will have to be approved because it will amend a portion of the Constitution.
Yes.
Yan ang malaking problema.
Pag-usapan naman natin ngayon yung ano yung problema ng BBL. Because, its proponents are saying that finally, pag napasa to, finally, this elusive peace, and we saw that video earlier before we came on cam, na talagang maraming paghihirap na dinanas yung mga taga-Mindanao in some areas because of the conflict. I mean, that really is there. And a lot of the proponents of the BBL are saying that, we should pass this finally because peace is within our grasp. Ano ba yung problema ng BBL? Let's start, Roddy ko muna. What is the main problem of this BBL?
I don't want to be cynical, but actually, ang problem sa Mindanao started by the Muslims themselves. They wanted to separate. Natural lamang sa state na mag-react. Before that, there was no problem. all Muslims and Christians in Mindanao were treated equally. In fact, we have Muslim congressman, senators who represent Muslim senator. Ngayon nawala na eh. Wala naman talagang problema dyan eh.
Ginulo lang.
Ginulo lang nila eh. Kasi, siyempre, somebody may nag-finance, which is Malaysia. Kung hindi fini-finance ng Malaysia, walang gulo dyan eh. Second, nandyan, proven na yung ARMM. In place na yan. Ano ba problema nila? Binigyan sila ng laws. In-approve ni Presidente Marcos yung Sharia law.
Yes.
Hindi ba alam yun?
Yeah.
Binigyan sila ng right ng mag-asawa sila ng hangga-apat. Polygamy nga yun eh.
Yes.
Pinayagan natin yun eh.
Yes.
Anong problema? Binigyan sila ni Presidente Marcos ng ano ba sa civil service na pag dati kang rebel na train ka, for instance,
Parang integrity.
automatic ka na magiging civil service eligible.
Yes.
Isa yun.
Yes.
Ang iba naman, mapupunta sa armed forces. Maraming binigay sa kanila eh. Ano ba problema talaga? Eh wala eh. Sila, gusto nila, ang interpretation nila, we want peace. But if you will look at it, makikita mo ang interpretation nila ng peace. Secession.
Yes.
Secession.
Ferdy, what do you have to say about that?
Well, the BBL has a lot of infirmities, no? First of all, the name itself.
Bangsamoro, yeah.
Bangsamoro
Let's talk
basic
about
law.
that, yeah.
Bangsa is just the Malay term for the Tagalog bansa, which is state.
Yes.
Moro is Islamic. Basic law is the same as constitution. You can ask any lawyer worth his salt. Bangsamoro basic law is Islamic state constitution.
And this is the foundation of a country,
Yes.
of a state.
State,
Yes.
a country.
Yeah, the
So that's
charter.
why in the negotiations for the 1996 final peace agreement, wherein Indonesia, incidentally, Indonesia in all the peace talks has always been the mediator, no? But now it's Malaysia,
Malaysia, yeah.
which is an adversarial country,
Yes.
an enemy country. So Indonesia did not allow the use of the term Bangsamoro. And in fairness to Professor Nur Miswari, who invented the term, there's not such thing as Bangsamoro.
Yes, yes.
In fairness to Chairman Nur Miswari, he did not pursue that. So there was an agreement, the 1996 final peace agreement, that was in conformity with the Philippine Constitution and in conformity and with respect to our sovereignty as an independent country. So the problem now came up when the Americans found out that there was oil, natural gas, and uranium in that part of the Philippines, in Sulu Sea and in Liguasan Marsh, and so they came up with the Memorandum of Agreement on the Ancestral Domain.
Alam mo, Ferdy, I went through the provisions of the Bangsamoro Basic Law, and I found it really quite interesting that when it talks about yung resources dun sa area yon, yung sharing, yung hatian, etc., very specifically mentioned yung uranium.
Yes.
Sabi, fossil fuels and uranium. And I was going, fossil fuel, coal, and uranium, something like that. But very specific yung uranium.
And remember that uranium is being used for the manufacture of nuclear weapons. So, what are the other infirmities of the Bangsamoro Basic Law? It creates another kind of citizen, the so-called Bangsamoro citizens.
Again, in the Bangsamoro Basic Law, if you read it, there's repeatedly reference to citizen of Bangsamoro.
Yes.
Which is, I'm not a lawyer, but as a Filipino, I would like to think na isa lang yung citizen dito sa bansa na to.
Yes.
Citizen ng Republika ng Pilipinas, di ba?
Yes.
Oh.
And they keep on repeating the word self-determination
Yes.
in the Bangsamoro Basic Law. Sovereignty is indivisible. You cannot have two states in one so-called republic. That cannot be.
Okay, Ferdy, hold that thought because we're going to pick up from there when we come back, Rod. We'll come back with more of the Mindanao problem and the BBL when Philippines Uncut returns.